G'day there guys, my name's Marky, and welcome back to another episode of r/relationship advice. I do hope you enjoyed today's bloody good episode, and with that said, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn to the Barbie, let's get right into it. Cheers. Am I the asshole for telling my husband's friend that he was selfish and hurting his wife? My 32 female, husband 36 male, has a high school friend 36 male. Let's call him John. John's a typical jock. Athletic, good-looking, popular with girls. But I've been around enough to see and hear him being questionable towards women. To the story, we were in a group of friends, and I was introducing them to my new baby, 0 female. Important information, I had a miserable pregnancy. The topic of having kids came up, and John started saying how him and his fiancée would be the next. More important information, his fiancée Janet, 32 female, is an amazing lady. She is kind, smart, and gentle. Recently, she's been through a lot. She lost her dad, and her health has been terrible. I'm not going to say what, but she has a disease that causes headaches, weakness, dizzy spells, fainting, and extreme fatigue. She's become more and more emotionally and physically dependent on him. On top of that, she and I come from another country. It means her family and support system are not here. Now back to the situation. I asked her if they plan to have kids after the wedding. That is in 2 years. I thought that would give her time to recover. He doesn't let her answer and says they agreed they would only get married after having kids. I'm surprised for 2 reasons. She always said she wanted kids after marriage, and her health is not good. She doesn't say anything but looks sad. I argue that it doesn't seem like a good plan, and that a pregnancy now could put her health at risk. He said her fertility window is almost closing, and that it's now or never. I start getting angry, and we discuss. I ended up saying that he is selfish, and this decision is only based on his wants and needs, and is hurting her. Basically a form of abuse. The room gets quiet and we ended up leaving. My husband later agreed with me, but said that it was not my place to say anything. Our friends are mixed, saying someone had to say it, but that I was too harsh. I feel that maybe it wasn't my place and that I was being a busybody, but after being through a hard pregnancy myself, without my family, I know how hard it is, and my husband is a great supportive guy. Meanwhile, John leaves her alone all the time to party and enjoy life. He is dooming someone that trusts him blindly into a horrible situation. Am I the asshole? In the comments, what you said was the truth, but you were a little bit harsh. I think you were right to say it because the guy obviously doesn't care how he treats his wife. I also think you should ask his fiancée in private how she feels about her situation. OP says, I agree that I came out too strong. I feel protective towards her. She is so sweet and nice. I feel she doesn't deserve the way that he treats her, but when I say something in private, she keeps repeating that he loves her and she's never met a man like him. I feel like she thinks that he is out of her league or something. Someone else says, honestly, I think he knows what he's doing. There is a reason he won't legally commit to her until after she has children. And it's not a kind or responsible reason. So I don't think he's going to care about what you said or the potential health outcomes for your friend. It may be satisfying to call him out, but is it going to change his mind? OP says, I also found this part extra strange. The first time we met, she literally said how her dream was to have a wedding and then kids. She even repeated that recently. She comes from a Catholic upbringing like me. It doesn't seem like a thing that you change your mind this easily on. Everyone sucks here, except his wife. In this conversation/fight, both you and John are treating his wife as if she's a child that can't make decisions for herself. He is talking over her, but you are also making assumptions about their decisions based on her looking sad. OP says, I admit I should have talked to her first, but we just had a conversation about her health, and she was telling me how some days she can barely make it out of bed. His smugness made me so angry, as if he knows what is best and no one can question him. Someone else says, honestly, I would be pissed if someone started talking and arguing about my health issues in public. I'm a really private person. Does the rest of the group know about her health issues? You didn't speak to her but made assumptions. She might not confide in you anymore. He might be an asshole, but she is an adult, and you could have made it worse for her. I had 2 awful pregnancies and was alone without family around, but my husband is amazing as well. I get where you're coming from, but seriously, be more aware next time and show your friend some respect. And don't talk about people's medical history in front of others. Everyone sucks here, but obviously not your friend. OP says, I see your point. The group started with some people that studied together and then expanded with their significant other. We meet often and are friendly. When she got sick, we took turns visiting and checking up on her when she was alone for one reason or another. Everyone seems to try to be her support system, but seems afraid to say anything to John. Someone else says, he probably does and just doesn't care. John is aware that his wife isn't in a good place for kids. If him and OP's husband are such great friends, why didn't he say anything? Call out your friend's shitty behavior, people. OP says, my husband's great, but everyone jokes that he has a man crush on John. He was John's sidekick in school and doesn't listen when I point out some comments that John makes. I can see why people have been saying everyone sucks here for this one, but I feel like they're kind of blowing it out of proportion a little bit. Though it seems like it's more of a wrong place, wrong time to have this conversation because you were in a group of friends. Maybe that helps me be more convinced that this leans everyone sucks here, because it would be embarrassing for both John and his partner to, have to talk about this when they otherwise don't want to talk about their own medical history together, which it caused an argument. Though you're speaking from a place of experience, you said that a pregnancy now could put her health at risk, and he says that her fertility window is almost closing, and it's now or never. Obviously, you got angry, we discussed, which means you had a back and forth with him. And then you attacked him, saying he's selfish, this decision's only based on his wants and needs, and is hurting her. Basically a form of abuse, and then the vibes were just awful from that point on. I think this conversation should have been had away from your friends. I don't think that that was an appropriate place to have this conversation. But at the same time, as I've seen in the comments in the past, everyone always says, no, actually, it's fine to have this conversation in the moment because then you get social pressure put on the person that you think is abusing someone else. And therefore, when the group turns against that guy, that's a good thing. That will make him rethink his position and potentially stop abusing her. Or it could cause him to completely cut you guys off from her. Who knows? That's a tough one. But I don't know. I'm going to go with not the asshole, actually. I've convinced myself here. And now, onto the update. Thank you for all the answers. I am blown away by all the perspectives and was able to see further into the situation. I reached out to Janet and invited her for a coffee. We usually talk with more people around, so this was the first time fully alone. I started by apologizing, and I said I shouldn't have said all of this in front of everyone and acted as if she couldn't speak for herself. She said she was initially embarrassed, but after further thought, she started questioning if it was a really good idea to have kids now and has scheduled a talk with a specialist. She said John doesn't know, and she wants to have more information before talking to him. She also said he was furious afterwards, and they had a terrible fight. So you guys were right, it was not the right move, and he did blame her, saying she should have defended their position and that she knew having kids was a must for him. He also said that a woman would only be a real woman if she gave her man biological children. She asked him what if she could not, and apparently he never answered. These answers are just why Reddit always says just divorce him and move on, because of this shit. It seems as though more has happened in the fight, but I decided not to pressure her and let her tell me what she was comfortable with. Lastly, she decided to take some time off and go home to her mum, and I think that's a great idea. The saddest part for me was that she cried, saying someone like her would never get a man like him, and that she was scared of losing him. That it was like she found a golden ticket. I held my tongue, because I personally do not think he's a prize, but again, I took the advice and didn't pressure her further. He's a shit-covered ticket is what he is. I also had a long talk with my husband, and we are at odds. He still thinks I'm overreacting and that John poops gold. I'm frustrated, but there's not much that I can do for now. Not a fantastic update, but it's only been a few days, so I'll let you know if there is anything big happening. In the comments, Throw RA Rose Color says, "Oof. There's a trend of American dudes who specifically choose foreign partners from certain Asian countries because they consider them meek and docile. It's been a thing for decades. This dude is definitely one of those. The friend is an absolute carrot, and no reasonable woman should be with someone like him. He also definitely is not going to marry her after she gets pregnant and will remind her constantly that she is damaged goods now. It's a thing military dudes do a lot. They want Filipino wives because the women are docile and listen to their men." Ah, I see they've never met a Filipino wife. It couldn't be further from the truth, lads. I've found that people who support abusive assholes tend to be a universe asshole. What in the goddamn is a universe asshole? He wouldn't think the man poops gold unless he supports his actions. Janet's man is trash and she should never come back. That man's toxic. I hope that OP continues to be the support and light the woman needs to get away from him. It'll definitely take some time before she understands for herself, but I truly hope that she gets out. Quote, "Never get a man like him." It's been my experience that when a battered woman talks like that, it's only a matter of time before she takes her abuser back or decides to stay. I've seen this many times before. I just hope that OP is mentally prepared for that. I've been that woman. Eventually you realize that dying alone is better than living like that. Or as you've seen in some true crime cases, you don't die alone, but you do die. That's a very grim outcome to staying with someone and going back to them like that because they feel as though they have complete ownership over you. I also then feel like that's why it's so important that we help these people out so they don't become a statistic. It really sucks to get those responses from the friend. Like, there's so many red flags, especially with the husband not answering the question and then her saying, "She'll never get anyone as good as him. He's perfect. Yeah, he only pushed me down the stairs a few times, but he was joking." Like, do these people not hear themselves? This man hates you. You are an incubator for him. You're a bang maid. He doesn't value your life at all. I wish I could download some sense into their brains so that we could fast forward this process without all the trauma, but, this story is just going to repeat for as long as time itself, I guess. Just be there to support people in battered and bruised relationships like that. That's all we can really hope for and all we can really do. I hope that things get better, OP. Thank you for sharing your story with us. Our next post is by user Defiant Negotiation 6, titled, "Am I the asshole for telling my boyfriend that rent comes before fun? I, 25, and my boyfriend, 33, have little trips planned this year. We both have jobs and we live together. My job pays probably 5 times more than his does, but his job pays cash only. My boyfriend called to remind me today that he's going on a weekend trip out of the state to visit an old friend. I have no problems with that, but I do want the bills paid before he goes if they are due before his trip. He tells me he will pay the rent 6 days late, there's a 5-day grace period, and pay the late fee for doing so. This upset me because I don't want that on my rent record. Only my name is on the lease, and I know they keep track and document late payments. I'm unsure if it'll prevent me from getting a rented apartment later in the future or not, but still the fact remains that you can pay the bill on time, so do it. He would rather use the rent money to fund his trip since he'll get paid the day he returns and says that he'll use that money to put towards the rent plus the late fee. He knows my job has been cutting hours for 2 months now, and my checks will be almost $600 less than usual, and who knows what could happen where we need the money for something and we don't have it. I told him he should pay the rent and not use the money for his trip. It's irresponsible. He even tried to cover himself by saying, "I'm telling you 3 weeks in advance that I won't have any extra money to give because I'm going out of town for 3 days. I told him, "That doesn't sound wise since I'm being cut over half of my usual paycheck and you're getting cut too." He got upset and told me, "You have a nice trip you're going on in November. Why can't I go on mine?" And I said, "Yes, I do, but I'm going to pay my bills before leaving if they're due. I'm not going to neglect my bills for 3 days of fun, especially when I know they're cutting hours at my job and yours. Who's in the wrong here? Edit/clearing up some comments below. I forgot I was talking to Reddit, not people in my neighborhood, lol. We use the phrase, I make X amount more, so lightly, to emphasize that we make more, we don't make it literal. I make $14 and some change an hour. If I get 40 hours a week, I'll bring home over $1,000 or close to it bi-weekly before taxes. He gets paid in cash and makes like $8 and some change per hour. He works 10 hours a day for 6 days a week, but his hours get cut and so do mine. Right now, I'm probably only getting 14 to 26 hours a week. He's probably getting cut 5 to 7 hours a day. He gets paid weekly. Our shared monthly expenses don't even equal $1,000. 2. No, his job isn't illegal, just pays cash. He got the job when he was trying to dodge wage garnishment for a child that wasn't his until his court date, which they've now cleared him of. 3. He has a child by his ex. And 4. He's looking for another job. I put applications in for him on my own because I know that I'm more consistent and won't give up after the first denied application email. Plus, I was just trying to help. The answer to this one is obvious, not the asshole. And at 33, he should have more sense of responsibility around finances in my opinion. I would ask him if he'd still be doing this if it was his name solely on the lease, or consider living separately if this is the norm. If not, that's a huge sign that this might be a deeper sign of how he values things that matter to you. OP says, we are considering living separately, and yes, he pays his bills in his name late a lot of the time. OP on getting a separate account so she isn't tied to her boyfriend's finance. He needs to pay child support. OP says, we aren't financially tied together, so I'm not being dragged down, but I do understand what you're saying. He was when he started. He was paying child support for someone else's child, but the courts finally threw out the case. So now he's just working here for no reason. He needs to be looking for better now. OP's boyfriend's living situation? Long story. He lived in his own place. He made his family house his home since nobody lived there. They kicked him out after 5 years because they wanted to charge him rent, and he didn't want to pay rent because, as he said, I've been there 5 years and didn't have to pay anything, so why y'all coming around now trying to hustle money out of me? The more you talk, the more I don't like him, but the more I'm also like, why have you not left him too? That house situation that you just chucked in there at the end is crazy. Actually, no, I've been living in 5 years. Why y'all trying to hustle money out of me? Why you want to be with someone like that, OP? How is that behavior not like a gigantic red flag? That's not even a watered-down, trickle-truthed version where he's potentially in a good light. That's just straight reality of someone being incredibly shitty. Maybe take a good look at yourself in the mirror and question why you're with someone as low quality as that. I don't think you're in the wrong for telling him that rent comes before fun, but maybe for you this is a life lesson as to the quality of partner that you choose to allow in your life. And now, onto the update. He has moved out. I'll just come and say that he's currently moving his last bit of clothes and has taken his favorite things in the world next to his daughter, not with me, already. His PS4 game system and his 75-inch TV. Also, he told me that he wanted to pay rent late because he also had a surprise for me. He said he was going down there to see his friend because he was coming back home with a car. He had purchased it from his friend apparently, and it was a surprise. I told him that I was happy for him. If this is true, we'll see in a week, since he's been without a car for a long time, and I've been without a car as well, but that doesn't really excuse paying rent late. Thanks for the advice and help. Also, please don't congratulate me. I knew I had to do this, but I'm not leaping for joy about it. We haven't broken up, but I am re-evaluating if this will even work anymore. Long discussion ahead. OP on how she met her boyfriend before things went bad. Then don't. Life happens. When I met him, he had 2 jobs, a house, and a vehicle. Jesus effing Christ, y'all are so judgmental, it's crazy. And like I said, moves have been made to adjust it. First things first, he's moved out literally the same day. Not a week later, 24 hours. This is the updated post. I'm not teaching anyone anything because nobody is here except me. Y'all still gonna complain even when I'm pushing him out, lol. Troll someplace else, bruh. Is the car registered to both OP and her boyfriend? Nah. He made it clear that it's his car and he's willing to help me if I need it, but don't get it confused, it's his. I'm not driving it or anything, lol. He's one of those men who don't let women drive their cars. For those who don't want to read the screenshots, I'll sum it up here. My boyfriend moved out last week. He didn't pay his share of the rent before moving out. This left a big inconvenience on me since I haven't been receiving any hours at work. He did have the rent money at one point before moving out, but he used it towards buying a car / going to Arkansas to see his friends. He said he would just give me the rent money the next week, today, with no problem. Now he's saying he is having problems paying me the rent money he owes, plus the late fee for not paying it on the first. He's complaining that if he gives it to me, he won't have any money for his new place or his new car. Things that he knew he couldn't afford before moving out, yet he still did it instead of waiting and stacking up his money. He wants me to borrow $88 of the $185, but I don't have anyone to borrow it from, which upsets him. I told him that I had $60 left after I paid off a few little things from my check, as I get paid weekly. My check was probably $100, lol. The $60 was used to pay towards my phone bill, which is $95. So clearly I'm not in any position to be giving him money since I don't have it myself. Again, this upset him. I knew this would happen if he went to Arkansas with the rent money, but of course he talked it down and said that it'd be okay. And now we are back in a bind. OP on how she ended up in this situation with her boyfriend says, "We lived together because he got kicked out of his home by angry relatives and needed a place to live fast, and I had my own apartment at the time, so I said he can stay until he gets back on his feet. A few weeks turned into a year. He's always saying that he wanted to move back to the countryside like he was before, away from the city and people. He didn't like that I was the owner of the place that we lived, and therefore wanted out so he can own his own place and things, and doesn't feel like he's riding someone else's coattails. Yes, we are still together, we didn't break up, we, just as many have said, have communication issues, and have a hard time expressing it without it leading to a fight or a misunderstanding. I'm seeking therapy, and I'm asking him to join me. It's free by my job." OP on her boyfriend telling her to borrow money says, "He wasn't trying to drop it. He literally was telling me to borrow the money because he couldn't pay for it. He said let it go, but brought it back up again in the screenshots. This time asked me to borrow the $88 because he wanted to keep that part of the rent for himself to spend on whatever he wanted. He asked me to borrow $88 before and after. He never dropped it. He called me right after to ask my coworkers, which of course I said no to. That's ridiculous. He blew our rent money on a car that he can't afford and weed. So yeah, I don't trust that he won't blow $88 too. Not to mention, it's for the rent, and I can't afford to give him it. The rent is already late AF. We're at $25 additional late fee a day. The total is over $180 now. I don't know if the pictures are out of order, but I can gladly send a screenshot lol. He said drop it yesterday and brought it back up again today. Because clearly it bothers him that he has to accept his bad decision making of buying a car even though he can't afford it. He has no valid license, flags, expired tags, and fake plates. He didn't need a car right now because he can't afford it. He needed to pay the damn rent. Something he can afford to friggin' do." Someone else says, "You assume he's going to buy weed. You don't know for sure. He might already have some. To be honest, $88 is a weird amount to buy weed with. You're just trying to discredit him, and it's not working." OP says, "He doesn't have any weed." I'm not assuming, I know 100% facts. Only people assuming is you. I checked his stash, empty. He complains daily how he needs weed to get through the week. He wanted to cut off some of the rent money literally for weed. He even said that. Nothing I'm saying is an assumption or a play to discredit him. I just didn't think that I'd have to break down his whole history and background to simple-minded people just to point out that he skipped on paying rent for a car and apartment that he can't afford and wants to use a portion of it for gas and food, which is really weed. He has food stamps, so he doesn't need money for food, and he doesn't need $88 for gas, and when he took me to work, it was over halfway full. I'm not a rocket scientist, but I damn sure am not a half-wit. And now, onto the final update. He broke up with me. He found a place to live and a car. Said something I did to him in January was the reason for the breakup, lol. He couldn't move past it, and apparently only just realized it after he moved out and got a car. Surprise, surprise. Anyways, my new single life begins today. I'm miserable and depressed and crying on and off, but I don't feel like I'll take him back if he wanted to come back because of all the things he said and done, and I knew that this was a burning bridge when I stepped foot on it. I just thought that I could extinguish the flames faster than it was burning. It's hard to let go of your first relationship. Heck, he was my first love, my first everything. Thanks for the advice, people. Wish me luck. I truly need it. In the comments, Cest Cheese says, the part where he got a job to dodge wage garnishment for child support was the cherry on top of this shit sundae. Yeah, and around 100% chance he is committing tax evasion as well. No, it's not illegal. Well, yeah, the job isn't, but what he's doing is. There's being an asshole, and then there's being a dumbass who sticks by the asshole. That text transcript was like watching two toddlers argue, except one of them is 2 years old, crying and babbling nonsense, and the other is 4 years old, occasionally saying something that makes sense. Crazy that it's two people around 30 years old. So they're referring to another post that OP made there where it's just pages and pages of transcripts where she just screenshot the text messages between her and her boyfriend. I was going to read it out, I really did want to, but it is so lengthy, and with OP already just talking so much and making me want to smash my head into a wall, I don't know how you guys would feel having me read out that entire text message shitstorm that goes on between the two, but if you want, you can look up the OP's username and go to Reddit and read it yourself. Because to me, it's just ineligible garbage that is not worth reading out. That was just a whole nother level of bullshit. Anyway guys, thanks for watching today's episode. I do hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!